Yeah, welcome back to the show. It is a Tuesday night here in Vancouver. We come November 4th, we'll have a brand new prime minister. Right now we have a prime minister designate, which is Justin Trudeau, head of the Liberal Party of Canada. And joining us in studio, Hedy Fry. Hi.
Happy days. Very nice.
You won re-election last night. We had you on the show, I think maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago.
About that.
To talk about, you getting re-elected, and the NDP put up a pretty well-known person to run against you in your riding. Yet, you still walked away with 68% of the vote. And I just had a look at the amount of votes you got, which is over 33,000.
Yes.
You got more votes than all the others combined times 3. That's
I don't know if it's that much.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's pretty big. It's quite a large number. Did you expect that number to? I know you're very popular, but did you expect that number to be so high?
No, I didn't. But I think that having a leader who has very long coattails makes a difference.
Yeah.
If your leader is liked, the usual formula is people vote for the party, they vote for the leader, there's a percentage of vote, and the candidate usually gets about 10% of that vote. In some instances, if a candidate is well known and people like what that candidate is doing, the candidate will get more than 10%, and that's what tended to take a few of us over the top when we lost so many seats in 2011.
Yeah.
So I was thinking we'll be a little bit better than that, but I was really surprised and shocked. But I have to attribute that to a leader that people liked and wanted to vote for.
At 6:40, I don't know whether you were watching television then. CTV was the first to announce that Justin Trudeau would form the next government. What was your initial reaction when you saw that start popping up on screens?
Well, I always look at that and I think, how can you say that? How can you say that? Votes have not been counted in so many places, you know? But obviously there's a formula. Obviously they understand what makes them look at that. And I was really surprised. And immediately CBC did it as well. So it was such an exciting night. It was such an adrenaline rush to watch this happen.
And a lot of young people got out and voted too. We saw that the best percentage as per Canadians voting since the early 90s, 68%. That's a good thing.
It is a good thing. And I think what it meant was that people won this election. The people said, we want our country back. We want to make a decision about what our country looks like. We don't like how it's become. We don't like that it's been narrow and mean-spirited and hateful and creating divisions amongst us. That's not our Canada. And I think people responded to that, and they decided they wanted a new party. They wanted a new government. And I think what Justin did was not only give them a choice, but he gave them an optimistic choice, a choice that was filled with hope and positive vision and things that he was definitely going to do. And I think that he was focused and he was disciplined and people trusted him.
And he got a haircut too, I noticed.
Well,
he didn't have the shaggy hair that everybody loves.
Well, if you're running to be prime minister, you got to do a couple of
smart
casual.
Smart casual. Let me ask you about this. November 4th is the day that Mr. Trudeau will have to go to the Governor General's residence and say, all right, here's the makeup of my cabinet. The cabinet, we all need to be sworn in. Is that a bit of a drawn-out process for the Liberals to figure out who's going to have what ministerial position? Because there's a whole bunch of factors behind that, isn't there?
Yes. It differs, the length of time that a prime minister designate waits before he begins his actual government.
Yeah.
And it varies. When we won in 1993 under Mr. Quetchen in October 25th, we didn't actually get back into the House until January.
Right.
It took that length of time because transition is a process. Now, I think Justin may have that process down pat. He may have it all ready to go. He may have all of those things ready to move forward and therefore can do this sooner.
Yeah.
But transition is a huge piece. Moving one government out and moving another political party in requires a fair amount of transition on the part of the bureaucracy and the departments and the Privy Council and all of those things. So that has to be formulated. And so
plus the Prime Minister has to pack up the house. He has to open all the drawers and go, hey, Lorraine, are we going to keep this? No. We should turn off the cable package because we don't know whether Trudeau's going to want the sports or not. Let me ask you about cabinet positions, and I don't mean to be rude here, but would you hope that you would be considered for a cabinet position?
I'm just happy that I won.
Yeah.
That's not something. That's something that the Prime Minister decides on.
Sure.
And he decides on for a variety of reasons. I mean, one of the things that a Prime Minister will look at is he look at regional representation. He wants to make
which
sure...
is important, isn't it?
It is. All parts of this country has a fair voice around the cabinet table.
Yeah. And most governments are pretty good with that too when they look at the makeup of the...
They do.
And, the Conservatives had a few ministers based here in BC as well.
Yes.
We're likely to see the same with the Liberals?
Well, you will, because that has to be a consideration.
Yeah.
Seriously, because you have to represent the whole country. And you cannot understand the country around the cabinet table unless you have people from every region in the country.
Yeah.
Then, a Prime Minister may want to look at urban issues and at rural issues and at some people in isolated areas. You may want to look at people who looks at farming, who looks at some of those things. So there are a host of things he looks at. Diversity, not only in terms of diversity of region, but maybe diversity in terms of the balance from his own party, the team he's had. He looks at talent. He looks at experience.
How many Liberal women got voted in last night? Out of those 184 seats, how many of them were women?
Were women last night?
Yeah.
I think 27% were women.
Okay. That number could be a little bit higher, couldn't it?
It could. We would like to see, I think most women who want to look at equality of representation in the House of Commons want to see us somewhere. If we can get to 30, there seems to be some magic formula that creates a sort of an ability for that to then steamroll and evolve into more and more and more. However, the first past the post system doesn't allow for that kind of representation in terms of diversity. So basically, that is why Justin said this is going to be the last first past the post system that we will see in Canada. And he's going to look at proportional representation. But there are various types of proportional representation that occur around the world. So he will want to do that in consultation with Canadians. And I think that's something that people haven't heard for a long time.
And
a Prime Minister doing something in consultation with Canadians.
And 10 First Nations voted into Parliament last night as well, which is also fantastic.
Yes, and that's fascinating.
8 for the Liberals, 2 for the NDP.
Yes. And I think this gives a real diversity of understanding certain issues, understanding, having that ability to do that. He's going to look for experience as well.
Yeah.
But I do think that's something that he will have to sit down and think about, decide how many cabinet positions he wants. There are also the cabinet ministers, and there are junior cabinet ministers, and then there are parliamentary secretaries to cabinet ministers. So there's a huge raft of people that he needs to look at. There's a House Leader, there's a whip, there's
a lot of positions they need to think about.
Yes.
It's like building a brand new company when you think about it.
Yes.
You've been in politics a long time. There's a lot of Liberals that were voted in last night who are very wet behind the ears when it comes to politics. Will you take on a bit of a mentor role with some of these younger MPs as well, because you kind of know the lay of the land?
When I first came in, I had mentors.
Yeah.
And there was one special mentor who is no longer alive. His name was Herb Gray, the Honourable Herb Gray from Windsor, who had been a member of Parliament for 40 years and just voted in every single time. And he was so experienced, and I would go to him. And he took me under his wing, and he helped me to understand how the system works, where the washrooms are, all that kind of thing. But he was very valuable to help me to understand. It's a very different way. A government doesn't run like a company, like a big corporation. A government has to take a whole lot of other things into consideration when it governs. And so he helped me to understand all of that. And I think, because I came from medicine where ability was what mattered. Could you do your job well? Could you keep people alive? Could you keep them healthy? Did you know your stuff?
Yeah.
Those were not the only things, and that was where I learned that consideration was made on a whole lot of other bases than simply do you know your stuff.
Yeah.
Because Justin Trudeau has a large number of very talented new people who came in. Some of them have had some experience in government, different levels of government.
Yeah, I've noticed some of them sort of were in politics a long time ago, got out, went back to the private sector, and have come back to politics.
Yes.
All right, we're going to take a break here. More with Hedy Fry. She's our guest. She absolutely won her own riding with 68% of the vote last night. This is Vancouver Centre we're talking about. Hedy Fry is our guest. More with Hedy on the other side of this. Stay there. Yeah, welcome back to the show. Hedy Fry, longtime member of Parliament for Vancouver Centre. She's a Liberal, won her seat last night, 68% of the vote. You won fair and square last night. People still like you in that seat, and they've voted you in. That's to see 68% of the vote for yourself. When you look at the other ridings around the Lower Mainland, you got a fair chunk of the percent of the vote there.
I did, but I believe that I got that fair chunk because of Justin Trudeau. I think he helped me to leap over that bridge.
You think?
Yeah, he did. I know that. I know he did.
How are you feeling today? Are you exhausted after this 11 weeks?
I don't know. I haven't had a chance to think all day, and so you kind of get this adrenaline letdown effect that occurs that in about 3 days you want to sleep for 4 days, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But right now, no, I'm still pumped. I'm still happy. I'm still high, and I'm just so proud of my leader. Just proud of what he did.
Speaking of being high, the Liberals.
Okay. wrong word.
Freudian slip. Your incoming government plans on legalizing and taxing marijuana
and regulating, yeah.
Yeah, regulating. Still a lot to go there. What have you heard from your constituents? What do they want to see happen? Because Vancouver's really leading the way in this at the moment. We know that the mayor is supportive of Mr. Trudeau's plans. Where do you stand on this? Obviously, you live in Vancouver, so you know a little bit about this.
Well, I think the reason we want to legalize and regulate it is that when you looked at a 2014 report from the United Nations, UNICEF and WHO, the World Health Organization, they found that Canadian youth had greatest access and the highest use of marijuana in the world.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they showed that Canadian youth had the lowest access to cigarettes and the lowest use of cigarettes in the world.
So it makes sense to...
It makes sense.
Yeah.
And it takes away the supply system, which is organized crime. You take it out of the hands of organized crime.
Yeah.
You put a clear set of limits on who could, where it could be sold, etc. And you look at youth. You don't allow youth to have access to it.
A lot of people, especially dispensary owners, especially here in Vancouver, are a little bit worried that depending on which way the Liberal government decides to go once they get into office, they could see themselves out of businesses and see that sort of stuff going towards the large producers, the larger scale producers. Is this something that we need to keep sort of at a grassroots level, or do we need to make this into a big pharma thing?
No, I think that was something that the Conservatives did.
Yeah.
It was a small production before that. You applied to Health Canada to get a license.
Yeah.
You could show that there was a need for this, and then doctors sent prescriptions, and you dispensed. The Conservative government moved this into this big production thing, and of course then failed to move it forward at all, failed to do anything about it. I don't think that we will decide what we're going to do until we sit down. As Justin, he's a guy who looks at partnerships. He looks at not imposing anything. He will sit down with provinces and with cities, and he will say, what should this look like? What do we think this will look like?
Right, so he's going to do a lot of consulting.
It's premature to talk about what he will not do.
Let's talk about infrastructure. A lot of promises made by the Liberals as well as to the Broadway, the LTR out in Surrey as well. Are people excited here in the Lower Mainland about that promise possibly coming true?
Well, I think the mayors are across the country. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities have always said that transit is at the top of their list. Housing is at the top of their list. Because, municipalities struggle with 8 cents on the dollar of taxes to produce and to provide probably the largest number of services, because they're where the rubber hits the road, right? The municipality. And so I know that Justin has spoken to the mayors. He's spoken to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. He's met with them. He has heard what cities and towns in this country are saying that they actually need to be able to move forward, to provide those services and to provide transportation, to provide transit, to get their goods from A to B. And so I think we have not had a strong infrastructure plan like the one that Justin has proposed until now. We have the last government advertised $750 million worth of advertisement about how much infrastructure they were building, and they managed to only spend about 20% of the money that they designated for it.
And this is why the Liberals plan on having that modest deficit to be able to invest into infrastructure.
It's the right time. Interest rates are very low. We can do this. We can do this in 3 years. We did it in 93. We did not say we were going to balance the budget in 93 when we took over from the Conservative government then. And after 3 years, we did, in fact, balance. We did start paying down the debt. We did start doing those things. But we did start with infrastructure investment, because it seems that infrastructure gets things moving. It gets jobs. It not just the jobs of actually building roads and bridges and transit, etc. Engineers get work. Civil engineers get work. We find all kinds of people get work, and that work translates into buying things, and retail starts
so it helps the
moving
consumer cycle. We invest into infrastructure. It creates jobs. They spend those money.
And it's a virtuous cycle.
Yeah.
And then government gets input into the treasury, which helps it to start looking at how it balances and how it spends, more on investing in the kinds of things that a country needs to do if it wants to be a productive, competitive nation.
Final question for you. On the day that you are officially back in Ottawa for the first day, what is the one thing that you're looking forward to doing on that first day?
Giving Justin Trudeau an enormous hug.
Well, you have to watch out for his security because he's going to have his security.
No. He's still going to be the leader of our party, and we will have huge caucuses to meet at, and he will always be there.
Hedy, I absolutely appreciate your time this evening. I love that you've come by and we've had a bit of a chat about what our future government could possibly look like, and I really do hope that you're a part of that.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
I
you,
will
Hedy.
be. In any way, I will be part of it.
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to see you with the cabinet position.
Well, thank you, Sean.
Hedy, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Hedy Fry is our guest tonight. She absolutely won her own riding in, I'm going to call it a landslide, 68% of the vote in her riding itself. That is incredible. All right, we're going to take a break here. Come back with more Drex Live on the other side of this. News Talk 980. CKNW.